everybody. Welcome back to Odd and Untold. This is episode 21. This is our Halloween special, and I'm really excited this week. This is one I've been wanting to do for a while. My friend and coworker Paula is here with us, and she's here with her sisters Olivia and Rachel. And just want to thank you guys for being on the show. And before I go any further, there's new intro music this week. If you guys have been following the show for 20 episodes, it's been the same music, but this week it is a little snippet of a new song sung by Olivia. And you want to tell us a little bit about that real quick? And I want to get back to that later, but just tell us about that snippet of music because it's really awesome.
Thanks. My boyfriend and I have a duet. It's a new project called River Send. And I like lyrical themes about, the afterlife. And I'm part of a couple Facebook groups about proof of life after death, and a couple of the stories touched me, and I wrote a song emulating that, and that's how Moonlight came about.
Awesome. It's a great song. And I'm going to link to your Spotify and everything down in the description below for everybody. I'm also going to run the song at the end of this episode. So people want to stay tuned, they can just listen to the song in this episode. So, but great tune. I do want to get back to it after we hear you guys' ghost stories because it's Halloween. And for people who don't know, Paula and I, like I said, we work together for how many years now? 3, 4?
Yeah, maybe like 3.
Because it was about maybe like a year before the pandemic, give or take.
Yeah, 2019 I started.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so sometime before the pandemic, and you and I became fast friends. And I think Robert, my office mate, spilled the beans to you that I am a ghost hunter. And we started talking about ghost stories, and I remember you brought me like a little sticky ghost to put on my monitor, which I still have on my desk. So that was awesome of you. And yeah, we just, especially after the pandemic, like when I came back and there was nobody in the courthouse, it was like a ghost town, and we would have lunch occasionally and just talk about ghost stories. So, and I wasn't even thinking about doing the podcast at that point, but I wish we had recorded that stuff because we had some good talks. But I'm glad you guys are here tonight. So
I have to correct you though.
Okay.
Robert didn't tell me anything about that. You told me that you took your son to, I think, Gettysburg. I'm like, oh, did you go on like any ghost tours? And then that's when you said you were a paranormal investigator.
Really? I thought he told you that.
Uh-uh.
No?
Nope.
Wow. All right. So I'm misremembering because
Yeah.
he told people, he told a lot of people. It was not,
No,
it
you
was
never
not.
told me that.
Wow. That was me?
Mm-hmm.
I could have sworn it was him. I'm sorry. All right. Well, cool. So whoever wants to jump in, just tell us about yourselves. You're all sisters. Paula and Olivia, you guys are twins. I'll let you guys sort of explain that.
We're
Yes.
twins.
I'm baby B. She's
I'm
baby
baby A.
Rachel was our foster sister growing up. We were in the same grade in middle school. I think it was a 6th grade.
Seventh grade. Seventh grade is when we met, and then I started living with you guys 8th grade through graduating high school. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Rachel got the spooky room.
I got the ghost room.
Which was the very last room in our house.
Yeah, like all the way at the end of the hall.
Yeah.
Which used to be my dad's room. My parents slept in separate rooms.
Oh, okay.
For reasons unknown to us.
And my brother would have friends over, and his friends would say that so my brother's bedroom was directly across from my dad's room. And, they'd be out doing late night shenanigans, and then they'd go to my brother's room to finally go to bed. And in passing my dad's room, they said that they would see certain things because he slept with the door open. One kid apparently saw an entity over my dad while he was sleeping. My dad says he's never experienced anything in the room, but he's super oblivious. So, yeah.
So tell me about the house, because Paula, you were saying off air that there was something about this house that you wanted everybody to kind of know.
Right. So my parents' house, it's a 7-acre farmette. We just had horses on it. I think it was built maybe in like the 1940s. Except the land is supposedly the Brotherton Indian Reservation, which was one of the first Indian reservations in New Jersey or America. I'm not sure. It's from the 1700s. So I don't know if our experiences are from people who've actually lived on the land for centuries or people who've lived in the house. Because previous homeowners have said that there was a woman named Candy who died in the house. A neighbor said that someone was an elevator operator who was crushed by an elevator and had passed away, and his spirit has gone to live in the house. Um, so yeah, like I've had weird experiences that I can't explain. I know Rachel and Olivia have too. I don't know. What am I forgetting about the house?
It's 5 bedrooms. It's laid out where there's a master bedroom, and then all the other rooms are like directly across from each other. So when you're going down the hallway, you can see directly into certain rooms from other rooms. I don't know if that's important.
Yeah, it's like a T-shape kind of. Come up the stairs, there's master bedroom, bathroom, and then that long hallway has all the other 4 bedrooms kind of scattered.
Right. And we're like in the heart of the Pine Barrens too.
Jersey Devil country, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. We can get back to that though. That's a fun subject. But so when did you guys, and you guys were kind of like, did you ever live anywhere else? Were you like born there and raised there, and that was just your home for?
Yeah.
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 So when did you guys start realizing that there may be something going on there?
Well, for me, our stupid older brother would like, tell us that, the boogie monster was in the toilet and, it kind of started there, like telling us things to make us afraid. And then, he would have his friends over and I don't know if they were drunk or high or whatever, but, they would say that they would see things and that would kind of freak us out. And I think it kind of made us more alert to experiences, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, I don't really know what age. I would say probably maybe middle school. Just that general time period. I started realizing I was hearing people talking in our house late at night. No one was up, no TVs were on. And these girls are, also agreeing. We've all heard it. And we would hear a woman talking and I think a man talking, right? I don't know if you guys remember.
I don't, I definitely hear, even now when I go to mom and dad's, I hear indistinct chatter, and it's usually coming from downstairs at night. And I can't even tell what gender it is, but I feel like it might be a woman. I don't know.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my introduction came probably a few years after you guys, as far as the paranormal activity. I feel like mine almost was like, in a way, creepier because my introduction is like sleeping over as a friend of Paula's. I'd sleep on the floor next to her bed, and every time I'd wake up in the middle of the night, wide awake, petrified, could not move. I mean, I could move. It wasn't like a night terror kind of thing, but like I felt there was something standing, like foot on either side of my body, just staring at me. And that like if I turned around, like I just felt like I didn't want to know what happened if I turned around. Every time it was just that like super negative, creepy energy. And yet about a year later, I moved into that house. So
it's funny you say that. Now I'm remembering. Paula and I used to share a bedroom growing up. The twins. And I often felt that also in my own bed. I had to sleep with my face towards the room, not, with my back towards, the room.
Oh, yeah.
If I turned over and my face was facing the wall, I I would catch myself and turn over. Some nights I remember feeling like I was awake and I couldn't open my eyes, and I would start sleeping with the blanket completely over my head, because I just didn't want to face whatever energy I was feeling. And Paula felt nothing.
I'd hop into bed with Paula terrified, and she'd be completely oblivious to what's going on. But she slept great in that room.
So were these more like feelings of like being watched or someone was there, or did you actually see anything?
Yeah, I never saw anything. I was honestly too afraid to look. It was just that, like, it honestly felt like if I looked, that something horrible was going to happen to me. I've never felt that kind of like impending doom before, honestly. But I think Olivia, I think I remember you telling me a story where you felt like something touched you.
Yeah. One night, I think we were in middle school, Paula.
You were younger than that, like, well,
I don't remember. Um,
maybe third grade for me.
this was when we were sharing our rooms together, or our room together, and I remember waking up kind of like in that in between sleeping to waking up phase. And I felt something like crawling up my leg a little bit, and I had like a knee-jerk reaction to like push it away. And I remember like opening my eyes and seeing a hunched over silhouette in our door. And that's all I remember. The next morning I asked Paula about it, and she had a similar experience that night.
But I do remember when you guys were sharing rooms, Burns' story of like coming out of the computer room.
Yeah, she slept over, and she was in the room across from our bedroom, which used to be the office. And my dad had a hoarding problem. This room was so cluttered, but this is where we all kind of shared the computer. And our friend Bernadette was on the computer late at night. Paula and I were asleep, and she saw a glow coming from the hallway that was traveling, and she was just frozen in fear because we were all asleep. And yeah, I don't know what became of the rest of that. That was so
I
long.
think she said she just had a blanket wrapped up and ran across the hallway because it was the room across from you guys's.
Yeah.
I'm remembering. Yeah.
Did she ever see what was making the glow, or she just saw like a glow?
I recall her describing it to me like an orb.
Okay, so that's interesting because I've heard a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. Most people see them outside, so it's usually
Yeah.
in the woods. It's usually my father's had experiences with them outside. Um, I know a lot of people have seen these orbs, and they could be like softball size or basketball size, but they're usually described as orbs, usually like an orange or an amber color. But they're usually seen outside. So it's interesting that she's saying she saw one inside, like in the hallway.
Yeah.
Paula has apparently seen orbs in that house.
Only
Oh,
until recently, I mean, recently within maybe like the last 7 years or so, like since, being an adult, maybe 10 years. Um, One time I was laying in bed at my parents' house, um, and I like to sleep all the way against the wall too. And I was getting ready to fall asleep. And I remember seeing this it was like a medium blue orb just like float on by really slowly and disappear into the wall, like right above me, like maybe like, I don't know, 3 feet above my head. And it was just very strange. I didn't really think anything of it. I fell asleep. And then a couple years ago, this was really bizarre. This to me, this is like I think I talked to you about this too, Jason.
probably.
Probably, yeah. I was at my parents' house for a visit. It was super sunny out. We were sitting in the living room downstairs, and there's I think it's like a bay window, and there are a lot of like a lot of reflective glass hanging in it. So we get those rainbow prism petal things. I don't know what you call them.
Mhm.
So like I'm used to seeing those. except this time when I saw it, it was a rainbow, but it was traveling all over the room, on the ceiling, on the wall. It was just everywhere. It was so bizarre. It was only one of them, but it was moving, and I've never seen it move. It's usually on the ground, or maybe stationary on the wall, and you know it's what it's coming from. But I've never seen it travel. And we were watching it for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I got up from the couch and I said, I'm going to grab my phone and take a picture. And then it disappeared. And I feel like that's like maybe like the Native American kind of thing, maybe with the land. I don't, I just, I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if that's an orb. It was on the wall though. It didn't come off the wall. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, the prism would be sort of the sunlight coming in making the rainbow, and it shouldn't move that much unless it's a hanging prism and the wind is moving it. And but
Yeah.
even then, the sunlight would have to be constantly hitting it.
Right, and I looked at all the, because it's like a lot of, that's, it's not like colored stained glass, but it's clear stained glass. And yeah, there was nothing moving. It wasn't really windy out. We grew up in that house for 20 some years. I've never seen anything like that.
Hmm.
That's probably my most recent unexplainable experience.
So you guys still have experiences when you go back there, then it's not just childhood stuff.
Yeah, and for me, it's like mostly just chatter. The chatter at night. Um, maybe yeah, like weird feelings. Um, but oh man, in middle school, so Rachel was already living with us, or it was this high school. I can't remember. I don't know if you want to explain this story because we probably all remember it so differently. We
Is this
were,
the classic bedroom story?
It was the three of us and our friend Bernadette. We were over.
I
We were
thought Alexis
telling
was there
ghost
too.
stories. What, Paula?
That was Alexis too. Oh,
No, I think it was just Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Or somebody else might have been there. Not sure.
Yeah.
But we're all just teenage girls hanging out, around my bed. I had like a computer desk next to my bed. We're all just kind of sitting there hanging out.
Telling
Yeah, we start telling ghost stories. And it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just came home from school and, we're having a great time. We're laughing, smiling, everything. And then my lamp on my desk clicks off. I had one of those lamps that instead of turning it, you push it and push it. And it pushed in, turned off. That, we were all just kind of like, oh, that's a little weird, haha, trying to brush it off. And then like a few seconds later, my computer speaker starts going and making all this static. And then we all just at that point were like, something is not right. We all booked it out of the room. I don't know how long that was, like since I had moved in, but I think that was probably the first experience in my room being the ghost room.
The best
that
part of that is when we stampeded out. We were all
It was
in the doorway, and we left Paula in there.
It was every person for themselves. Paula got smushed behind the door, stuck in the room as we all stampeded out of there. Yeah. I think we all slept out that night too. It was a school night and we convinced our parents, like, you need to let us sleep out. We cannot rest in this house tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, so they let us do that, thankfully. And then the next day I came home and there was like some kind of old stereo or something. Like there were shelves hanging in the room with stuff that was still their dad's stuff. So it must not have been too long after I moved in. And I remember coming into the room and then the stereo went on and started making, I don't remember if it was music or static, but it just turned on by itself. And I just like, I had just walked into the room. I walked right back out. I was like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah. And you slept with Paula or me? I don't remember, for like a month, right?
Yeah, I don't know which one. Yeah.
Oh,
Went back
I think
to your
it was
room.
me. I think you slept with me because then at school everyone said we were lesbians.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in middle school.
Well, anyway,
Classic middle school.
you ended up going back into your room and you were trying to go to sleep, right? And the blind
Oh,
got up.
yes, yes, yes. Yep. Yeah, I did forget about that one. So I had like the kind of shades that you just pull down, um, you know, the vinyl, whatever. And yeah, I remember I was, I guess, probably trying to go to bed because I usually put like my blinds, shades up and during the day, put them down at night. So I think I'm getting ready for bed. And before I could even do anything, it just like shot up. Yeah, all by itself. That was freaking creepy. But I think I was able to get over that one. I think by then I was like, you know what? This is my life now.
You know what's
So
funny? Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Rachel, was it the window? But your bed was up against the wall, right? At that point?
Yeah, so my room was like you walked into the door kind of in like the bottom left corner, and then I usually had my bed in like the corner opposite that. And then depending on what time it was, sometimes my desk was across from the door, and sometimes my desk was on the other side. Um,
Because it seems like all the activity, like
it was
the
like
computer was, it was like all in the same like corner kind of. If it's the window that I'm thinking of, the one that was above your bed, right?
facing like the backyard.
Yeah, yeah, which is where the speaker was and your computer was. So it's like all
Mm-hmm.
along that
It's like that
wall.
whole back wall, that whole back area. Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, I guess I was coming into the house with the stories of, oh, everyone saw shadow figures sleeping over our dad in that room, and that's your room now. So, to me, I guess at the time, I'm like, you know what? This is better than creepy shadow figures standing over me. Um, yeah. Um,
So did you
I
guys see a lot of shadow figures, or was it other people who were seeing them?
It was that one incident. We had some friends over and we were downstairs. It was late at night. I don't think Paula was, you had probably gone to bed or something. And uh, Rachel and I and a couple other friends, we were all in what was called the den. It was like we had two living rooms and one was the den, and that's where we were. And it had a straight shot into the kitchen where you could see the door to the laundry room. And we were all just focused on having a good time and everything, just talking. And one of our friends was missing from the group, and we saw a figure walk from the kitchen into the laundry room where we had a fridge back there. And one of us called and said, Lexi, please, get us a drink or whatever the case may be. And she ends up coming down from upstairs and she's like, what'd you say? And a few of us experienced this. We were like, what was that?
well, and aside from just walking into that room, somebody was messing with the cabinets in the kitchen. Like we heard, yeah, yeah. Because I don't think I saw the figure because from where I was sitting, I'm pretty sure I was in the chair like right next to the TV. So I was like too far away from that side of the room. But I distinctly remember myself and Elena hearing somebody mess with the cabinets. And I remember you and Bernadette and either maybe Elena as well, I'm not sure, all saying that you saw that, somebody in the back room. But yeah, that's what prompted somebody to be like, hey, get me a drink while you're in there. And then she comes walking down the stairs like, hey, what'd you say?
Yeah.
And we're all like, if that's not you, who was in there?
It's funny you say that because my brother, we always take everything he says with a grain of salt, but the whole cabinet thing kind of aligns with one of his stories. No one was home and he had friends over and we had a trampoline at the time. And he and his friends were all out jumping on the trampoline, and he goes inside the house and he says all of the upper cabinets, all of them were wide open. and his friends didn't go in. You know, he was with them, and he swears by it. And my dad has a couple of accounts that he swears by. He was home alone one day. Can I get into this right now, or are we like
Yeah,
done?
go for it.
He was home
Oh,
alone.
wait, can we put a disclaimer that dad's also a really big BSer?
Yeah.
I think that was her disclaimer. She doesn't really normally believe your dad or Daniel, but
I thought she was
given the
kidding.
circumstance, it lends more credibility.
Well, the fact that he like still says the story to this day, you know, he was home alone one day. We kids were at school, my mom was at work. And he was home alone and he started hearing aggressive banging coming from the basement. And he said it sounded like someone was like whacking one of the pipes with a baseball bat, that type of force. And he opens the door and it stops. And he closes it again, and shortly thereafter it resumes. And this time he goes down and he's thinking, you know, maybe the pipes are expanding. Um, and he didn't see anything. And he went back upstairs and it continues. And it was this game of him continuing to go down to see if anything was going on. And it just stops when he opens the door or goes down the steps into the basement. And our basement was creepy as hell. um, there was that story. There was another story where we had a piano in the other living room and he kept hearing the same note going off over and over again. And he was thinking, well, maybe there's a mouse in there, but it strike other keys or other chords within the piano. No, it was the same chord over and over again. And he lifted in to look into the piano and nothing was there. And then it did stop. So
Yeah, and most pianos, when you put the cover down, there's not a lot of space there. I mean, that wood kind of covers the keys pretty closely, and I don't think a mouse could have even gotten in there. So it's interesting. And yeah, it would have kind of run across
right.
the keys and struck different notes. So interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, you're saying he even checked like inside the piano, like the strings or whatever, right?
Yep.
There's nothing in there. So yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely remember like your brother definitely would tell us stories to freak us out sometimes, but over the years, he'd always soften on it and be like, oh yeah, no. But yeah, that one story about the cabinets was always his one that he would absolutely not let down. And after we experienced that, that definitely gave that more credit for sure.
I remember in high school, I was working on an essay for school. I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday. Because yeah, I had to work on the essay and I had to miss the Cranberry Festival in Chatsworth. My mom went without me. And I remember I was really disappointed. And I was sitting at my computer in my bedroom. I was concentrating on my essay, and right behind me, I hear a man moan. Um, and it, you know, like my dad plays the TV really loud because he's hard of hearing. He's, you know, always having the TV on, but it was right behind me. And the TV was on a different floor. And it freaked me out so much. I ran out of the room and I couldn't even finish my essay. Um, that spooked me. That's definitely like a male voice.
I
Yeah.
remember I think you were at band or something. I was in the dining room where we had our desk. I was doing work and mom was out in the barn feeding the horses and I was just like bored and I did the that
You.
you didn't hear that, the dun 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 dun, and then I heard a dun dun, like someone
I
knocked
remember.
on the wall and I bolted out of there. I was so petrified because I was home alone and mom was out feeding the horses. That 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 freaked me out. And that was downstairs and that was in the area that we usually hear the voices. Yeah, so
Yeah, I actually remember when that happened. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no way. But like, yeah.
Jesus.
Paula, your story actually reminds me of the one we were talking about earlier. I had come home super early from a sleepover. Like, for whatever reason, your dad could only pick me up at like 6 in the morning. So I come home, it's like, Saturday or Sunday morning, everybody's still in bed. I think your mom's out with the horses, your dad's down in the kitchen, you guys are snoozing. And I'm getting ready to go in my room and just go back to bed. And as I walk into my room, I hear a voice. It was definitely a female voice in the hallway. And I just assumed it was one of you guys, noticing that I'm coming home, saying hello to me. And I excitedly popped my head out into the hallway to be like, hey, nobody was there. You guys are still sound asleep in your beds. That was a really immediately uneasy feeling for sure.
And also, like growing up, we always slept with like a noise machine or some sort of air filter or fan.
White
We
noise.
don't like sleeping, yeah, white noise. So, for you to hear us say hi over that sound, and I guess we were in different rooms at that point too.
Oh no, I thought, no, like what I heard was somebody in the hallway, like basically as if one of you had come out to say hello to me as I'm coming in my room. So I immediately turned around to meet you, and then there was nobody there. I was expecting there to be a person, maybe like 3 feet away from me.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
So when you would hear the chatter, you're saying it was mostly female voices or all female voices, or
I tend to remember hearing both genders, male and female, but definitely female, and that seems to be what everyone else is attesting to. Which goes in line with the people that lived in my parents' house before us. They said a woman named Candy died in our house, and there was, I think Paula had mentioned earlier that an elevator technician who was killed by an elevator lived in our house also. And the family, my parents had somehow gotten in touch with them. They still lived in the area. And the kids that were now adults, they swore up and down that they would wake up in the middle of the night and they would see a male apparition looking down at them. And it freaked them out, obviously. And they said everything you're saying about your kids experiencing is it bodes with our own experiences. Our mom hasn't experienced anything though.
Well, actually, I was talking to mom earlier today because I was talking to her. We're going on Jason's podcast, and she said, yeah, she'll hear music, especially at night when she can't fall asleep or she's trying to fall asleep. She says it sounds like orchestral music or maybe like choir or like some sort of like vocal music. But she thinks it's like maybe in her head more than anything because she's really never had experiences. Um, my dad said that a couple months ago, they finally sleep in the same bed. That's a mystery to us still. uh, yeah, so they sleep in the same bed, and my dad sleeps closest to the closet. And I think he said he saw a mist go into their closet. It's like a walk-in closet, like a mist just float in. I think he said he hears chatter too. I'm not sure if it's like whispers or just a conversation, and you just can't make out what it is, the way everyone else describes it.
yeah, I mean it's really interesting. And I was talking to my friend last week, and we had some experiences in my old apartment in Brooklyn, and there was chatter, and the chatter that we all heard and different people heard, it was always like two men speaking, and it sounded like a conversation. We couldn't hear words, but it definitely sounded like a back and forth, just a regular conversation, but just and you could hear inflections, and you could hear it sounded like a conversation. It was always like two men. Nobody ever heard a woman. And anybody else who would stay over the house years later, my son when he was young, everybody always sort of encountered like a male entity. or male voices, or it was always male. It was never female. And I mean, I don't know what to make of that, but like with you guys sort of saying that a man who lived there died and a woman who lived there died, and now you're kind of hearing male and female voices. That's really interesting. And like Olivia said, it kind of plays into what people are experiencing, because perhaps there's the male ghost and the female ghost, and you're hearing these voices alternately. Because yeah, Rachel saying she's hearing a woman say hello, and Paula, you're saying you hear a man like behind you, kind of moaning or whatever. So it's really interesting.
I guess my essay sucked.
And I always got the feeling that Paula was sensitive
I am
to
very
what
sensitive.
lies behind, beyond the veil. And she used to experience oh, what are they called? Night terrors. And I always kind of assumed that I know there's, scientific whatchamacallit behind, what happens with night terrors, but Paula seemed to be experiencing these at the same time that she saw orbs. And when we were kind of at the height of experiencing some of this phenomenon. And I remember one time, this is when Rachel was living with us, and Paula and I had separate bedrooms at this point. And Paula wakes, or she is screaming bloody murder out of her slumber. And then I start screaming bloody murder because of it. And she walks to Rachel's bedroom, I guess for solace, or I think she was actually still in her dream state. And I run to Rachel's room and I say, Paula, are you okay? She turns to me and she says, like, F you. And it was like kind of evil, And Rachel's just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, Paula's had quite a few visions in her sleep state that were very creepy, and it's just kind of I don't know if there's anything to it, but the fact that she was in that room that Rachel and I and our other friends say was the really heavy room, the heavy feeling room. I don't know if those are actually connected. But since then, Paula, you don't experience sleep paralysis, right?
No, so I don't know how to say it. Like it's called hypnagogic hallucinations. I think that's how you say it.
Hypnagogic.
Yeah, there you go, hypnagogic. And yeah, they weren't night terrors, and I think they're like stress and hormone related. Um,
Because
so
there's
yeah.
night terrors and there's sleep paralysis, which was mentioned, and sleep paralysis can be terrifying. I've had it, and but you typically during those things you don't really hallucinate so much as you're just sort of convinced that there's something going on. And I know that's been my experience with sleep paralysis. Like I've never seen anything, but I was convinced there were little creatures in my apartment, like just scurrying around. Like, and I was like, this is why people think they're like aliens are abducting them, because I was convinced there were aliens in my apartment.
Mm.
So were you having like night terrors? Because night terrors are like just really, really intense bad dreams, and then sleep paralysis is more you wake up, but your body is still, your brain still has your body kind of in sleep mode, so you can't really open your eyes, you can't really move much. So
Um, yeah, no, I was definitely having the hypnagogic hallucinations
okay,
within like the first maybe 45 minutes of falling asleep, which is when they happen when you look it up. And I would, the point is you're like half awake, half sleeping, so you're still aware of your surroundings, but you're falling into that sleep mode. So yeah, I would see like someone standing in the doorway, or I would see someone. I remember it was really creepy, like an old like some man in an old wheelchair, like coming toward my bed. That was really scary. But usually, like I still get them every now and then. They're definitely stress and hormone related.
Mm.
It's usually like a snake or some like technicolored or like highlighter color like spider or bug. like crawling like toward me or descending from the ceiling. Um, but yeah, it was so new to me when they started happening as a teenager. And yeah, I would go to Rachel for comfort for some reason. And she's like not, no offense, like the most comforting person. And they're so overwhelming that when Olivia would try to help me, I'd be so confused and still like terrified that I wanted Rachel. Like, go away, Olivia. And the amazing thing is like that night when it first happened, and I was screaming, I went to bed just fine. Like that always happens. I always go to bed just fine. Nothing ever happened. And I probably freaked you out, and you probably couldn't get to sleep after that.
No, that was the scariest scream I have ever heard in my life. Yeah. Yeah, I had experienced sleep paralysis twice, and I remember I was homesick from school and I was in our den. And I fell asleep and I remember I actually did see something. It was like a man in a tall the tall hats or whatever. And he was like pressing down on my chest and you're aware that you're still sleeping and you're trying to wake up and everything. And I had mentioned that I'm in these groups of proof of life after death and all this stuff. And people will talk about their experiences with sleep paralysis. And oddly enough, a lot of people experience the same entity that I saw in my sleep paralysis. It was just really weird.
Yeah, they call him the Hat Man.
Yeah.
And I've done a blog post on it. There's this really freaky documentary about it. And I remember I had before there was even like an internet, like when I was in high school, I had drawn this picture of this entity that I had seen, and it was like all in black, and it had this black hat, and it was wide brimmed. And it was probably just like a couple of years ago. My son and I were just watching documentaries online. It was, oh, the Hat Man, these shadow figures, and we're watching it, and people are showing their drawings, and I'm like, holy shit, I drew that like when I was 16. And I ran up to the attic. I was like pulling out boxes. I found like this old notebook I had, and I showed my wife, and she was like, the fuck. And then I sent it to my friend John, and I was like, do you remember when I drew this? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, let me show you these screenshots from this movie that came out like last year. And he was just blown away. And like nobody knows like why everybody's seeing like this same entity that's like usually like in a black coat or like
Mm-hmm.
black clothing. It's all in black. They don't really see a face. They know it's a man. They don't know how they know it's a man, but they just get like a masculine sort of sense from it. And he's always wearing this like wide brimmed hat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I drew this back when I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. And that's
And
probably like the age that I experienced my sleep paralysis and saw him.
So creepy. Like I have
Yeah,
chills.
that just that
I have
just gave
chills
me
too.
chills. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
oh,
it's yeah, I mean, like, yeah, for my sleep paralysis, I didn't see anything because I couldn't really even open my eyes, but I didn't even want to say I heard stuff. It was almost just like a sense of knowing that there was something, because I was in my bedroom, obviously, I was in my bed, and I just had this sense that there were creatures in my apartment, small creatures. And I don't know how I knew they were small. I don't know how I knew there was many of them or multiple, but I just had this, like, I knew it. And like the first time it happened to me, I didn't really know what sleep paralysis was. I was younger. And then once I knew, like, it happened probably two or three more times. And each time I was just like, fuck, it's happening again. But it's still freaky because you're convinced that there's something in the room with you or something in the house with you. So it's interesting that you saw something because I never saw anything. It was just almost like auditory hallucinations, but not even hearing it. It was just like almost like I just knew they were there. So
Yeah.
that's interesting that you saw like the Hat Man.
Yeah. Now I got chills.
So what did you guys have any other experiences there that I mean you're kind of running the gamut. You're seeing shadow figures, you're being touched, you're hearing voices, you're hearing bangs, you're seeing orbs of light. A lot of activity, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, like going off Olivia thinking that I'm sensitive. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is anything, but just like hearing a voice in your head Like I remember I went to I think it was Valentine's Day dinner with my boyfriend, like 7 years ago, and they had a contest where you had to guess how many candy hearts were in the vase, and something in my head just said 246 exactly. And then I got an email saying you got it exactly correctly, and that voice just came out of nowhere.
Wow.
So, and I never like I won a gift card. I never went back to that restaurant, but it wasn't very good. I don't know, just things like that where you just hear like I don't know if that's your intuition or what that is. Um, I don't know. Do you guys like when you fall asleep at night, when you're getting ready to fall asleep and you close your eyes, do you ever see like people like someone's face? What is that?
That so it's funny that you mentioned that because that has happened to me 3 times now, and it's only happened to me when I'm out camping deep in the woods. So when I go camping to the Adirondacks, it's happened to me this last trip and then a couple of years ago. So like 3 times now, but like I would lay down in the sleeping bag and literally I'm not asleep, we're just kind of like put out the fire, get into the tent, close my eyes, and it wasn't even people I was seeing. It was, and I feel weird saying this, but it was like horrific creatures that were like weird amalgamations of things I've never seen before, like things that are not on Earth. And it was almost like they were beamed into my mind. And again, I don't know if this is because I'm like so tired from the hike and cutting wood, and I don't know if it's just pure exhaustion. It's only happened to me in the woods. Um, but like the second I closed my eyes, it was almost like a television transmission, and I would just see this flash of this hideous alien. And when I say alien, I don't mean like ET or the gray aliens or anything like that. When I say alien, I mean just like difficult to describe. And it's just this flash of this weird creature. And it almost feels like something is beaming it into my head. Like, do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see this? And I'll open my eyes and I'm like, okay, I'm awake. And then I'll close my eyes again and boom, there's just like another image in there. So it's really, really strange. And again, I always chalk it up to just me being extremely exhausted.
Yeah.
But you just don't know.
Actually, it's really funny that you said that because as soon as you started saying that you've only experienced that camping, my mind instantly went to actually last month. I went camping in Cherry Springs in Pennsylvania, which is like a designated dark sky site. So I had never camped anywhere so dark in my life. Our campsite was even under trees, under the dark sky, and we went during a new moon, so it's
Oh, wow.
pitch black. Like you opened your eyes, it was the same as your eyes being shut. And I had trouble sleeping the first like night or two. Same exact thing. Like every time I closed my eyes, I would get these flashes of like these like horrible faces that just didn't even exist. And like it was hard because then I try to open my eyes and it's just as black. Like it was a really bizarre experience trying to sleep like that first night or two. um so that's just really funny that you said that because
Yeah, that's and I don't mention it to anybody because I've been investigating the paranormal for a long time and I've never heard anybody mention that. So when it happens to me, again, I'm kind of skeptical of things, and I just kind of, for me, it was always like, okay, well, I hiked 6 miles today, and I was carrying 60 pounds on my back, and um, what's Paula
I
laughing at?
don't know what's going on. They're both cracking up.
I know, but
Rachel's camera we just like zoom in and zoom out. It was
it,
so funny. Okay. Okay.
Anyway,
all right, we're trying to have a real serious discussion here, Paula.
seriously, guys,
We're like
About-
we're having a
comedic
heart to
levity.
heart here over our experience
We're
that we had
bonding
no
over
idea
these-
anybody
yeah.
else had experienced.
uh, so yeah, Rachel, I mean that's really interesting because I always chalked it up to being just physically exhausted because when we hike into the wood, like we're not doing like quick easy camping, like we're hauling gear in and we're traveling 3-4 miles. By the time we go to bed at night, we're just exhausted, we're just drained and spent. And I always chalk that up to, it's just my brain, like the neurons are firing and I'm seeing these things that I couldn't even imagine. And again, like for me to even just like, because how would I even describe it to somebody? I can't even describe it. It's not anything I've seen before. They're just, I can kind of say kind of what they look like. One of them was kind of bird-like or dinosaur-like, but then the head was very like, it was just like these weird creatures. So, but it never happens at home. Like I've been exhausted at home and it's never happened at home. It's always been in the woods. So it's interesting that this happened to you when you were camping. And again, like very dark, and the Adirondacks are like that. Like you turn off your flashlight. If there's no stars out or there's no moon, you turn your flashlight out, you might as well have your eyes closed. You can't see your hand in front of your face. It can get that dark.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've camped other places and never experienced that. That was the only time. That it was freaky for sure, and I felt like alone because my friends, of course, could pass out in like 2 seconds, and I'm sitting here like, having to deal with.
I'm the same way. My friend Josh, who I camp with, he could be mid sentence. He'll be talking about something, and then he's right into snoring.
Wow.
And I'm just like, okay, I'll just take the next 45 minutes to try to fall asleep by myself and hearing things in the woods and
I'll just be here with the twigs snapping.
Exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
so that's weird. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad that someone else has experienced that. And again, I don't know if it's paranormal or but I feel a little better knowing I'm not the only one who's
Right. Either
experienced
way.
that. Either way, whatever it is, like creepy misery loves company. So
Interesting. I went through a course of after my cat died, who I was like in love with. He was like, I call him my animal soulmate. I was so desperate to like connect with him that I went through a course of animal communication and everything, and it's a lot of meditation and everything. And aside from all that, ever since then, now when I close my eyes, I'll see a pair of eyes looking back at me, or I'll see faces come up. I actually did even last night going to sleep. Like Paula, I haven't experienced like other entities like you guys are experiencing. But I just kind of wonder, if that's, coming through the veil a little bit when you close your eyes and yeah.
yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of theories about people being sensitive or people being open to these things, and I think there's a lot to that. I think if you're more open-minded to these things, and again, skeptics are going to say, well, you're just, if you believe in ghosts, you're going to see ghosts everywhere. If you believe in UFOs, every light in the sky is a UFO. And I don't really buy into that. I mean, some people are like that, clearly. I know some people who are like that, where just everything is a UFO or a ghost. But I do believe that if you are accepting of these things, and nobody really knows why, but I think if you are open to this and if you open your mind to it, things are going to filter in a little bit more. And again, what Rachel and I experienced, I don't know, because the last thing on my mind at these points was like, oh, I hope I don't see weird alien images in my mind as I drift off to sleep. I'm more worried about a bear coming into camp or coyotes or, a tree falling on us. It's not something I think about in the woods. It's not something I'm really open to. So that was weird. But I do think someone like Paula, if she's open to these things and these things can recognize that she sees them or notices them, they may focus more on her than someone else in the house. Like your dad, if your dad is just a skeptic and says, it's all, bullshit, they're not going to, try to knock on the wall for him because he's just going to ignore it. They're going to knock on the wall for Paula, or they're going to knock on the wall for Olivia, because if you guys are saying, holy shit, I heard that, whatever's trying to communicate might then just be like, okay, they heard me, so I'm going to follow this person and not their father or not their mother or not their brother, because that person is just and there are some people who have seen weird stuff and they'll tell you that, and then you're like, oh, so you saw Bigfoot or you saw a UFO, and like, no.
Yeah.
But it was weird, and they don't really want to admit what they saw, so they saw something strange or they experienced something strange, but they're still closed off to it. So
Right.
who knows? And then, yeah, there's other people who will tell you that they have two kids and one kid is always seeing something. One kid, there's a man in the closet, there's a man in the window, they're seeing something, and the other kid never says anything. So it makes you wonder, is it just one kid with an overactive imagination, or is it a kid who's just more sensitive than the other child?
Right. Well, that kind of opens up the whole can of worms of Western society suppressing um, you know, sensitivity, whereas other cultures, embrace that. And I was watching something on YouTube about that, and there are other cultures that if a child expresses that they are experiencing that kind of phenomenon, they will try to like send them to a school to build on that. And whereas in Western society, it's like, no, you're crazy, or you're schizophrenic, or your mind's playing tricks on you. And it's just interesting because the Native Americans, they used the spiritual world as like almost a guide for many things in their life. And it's just interesting how we're all supposed to be able to have this ability to be sensitive, but it's suppressed, and that's what's expected.
Yeah, definitely. And my friend Josh and I, hi Josh, I know he's watching. We were talking about this just like 2 weeks ago about instinct versus psychic powers, and just how in modern society we don't really use our instincts anymore. Like, we don't have to hunt, we don't have to find water, we don't have to make shelter, we don't have to build fire every night. Like, everything is provided for us. So our instincts are just not really honed anymore. We don't need them.
Right.
But every now and then we'll get this feeling and we call it psychic abilities, or we'll call it telepathy, or, I just had a feeling not to go down that street tonight, and then there was an accident. So were you psychic, or was that just something natural within us that we don't really tap into anymore? Just instinct, just pure primal instinct that we don't tap into because we live in big cities and we don't need anything anymore. Everything's at our fingertips. So I always thought that was interesting, that, where does this come from? Is it instinct? Is it psychic ability? And I'm sorry, I think I cut you off, Paula. So go ahead.
Oh no, and I was gonna say, like, Olivia and I are twins, but in kindergarten, was the first grade, we were actually separated, and I was put into a transitional first grade, and Olivia went on as normal, so I was held back. So I feel like our lives might have been different had we been kept in the same grade, because we can finish each other's sentences, but it makes me wonder, like, what kind of bond we never got to build as being twins. When I forget what you were even talking about.
No, but I mean, people will talk about that, the language of twins, and the twins almost have, again, a seemingly telepathic bond where they know what each other's thinking, or they know what each other's going to say. You can finish each other's sentences. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, a lot of people say, well, it's just because you spend so much time together. You're in the same class, you're in the same grade, you have the same circle of friends. You dress alike. Parents will dress twins alike, when they're children. I mean, it's not even up to the kids. It's just, let's put them in the same outfit. Let's get them the same haircut. And they just, so yeah, I that's an interesting question. Is it nature or nurture? Is it is it in you, or is it something that is produced by just how we treat twins, or things like that?
Yeah. Well, Paula and I don't see each other too much anymore. Paula's 2 hours away. But we try to talk, if not, a couple times a week, at least once a week. But sometimes, I always keep my phone silent. I'm a closed captioner as my career. And so I have to keep my phone on silent all the time. So that it doesn't, distract me or anything. And sometimes I'll have it in my pocket and it'll be silent. I won't even know. And I'll just think, oh, I'm going to call Paula. And a couple times she was already like, I'll look at my screen and a call from Paula, and so I don't know if that's just coincidence or the whole twin thing. Yeah. I don't know if you've experienced that, Paula.
Yeah, I've experienced it. Or I'm thinking of you, and then you like send me a message like, "Hey, look at this from Anthro," and I'm like, "Oh, I love that. It's in my cart. I'm gonna wait for a sale."
Yeah.
Yeah, have little shopper feelers. You know when we want to talk to each other, I guess. Yeah, we don't
You
have
know,
that with Daniel
all
though.
this talk of like, that almost like connection or psychic or whatever you want to call it. Like it does remind me actually of one of our friends, Bernadette, that we've mentioned, was present during some of our stories at this house. I remember one time I was actually over at her house, and this isn't like ghost related at all, but she's like cleaning up her room or something, and I'm just sitting on the bed, and in my mind, I'm just, kind of thinking of whatever. And in my head, I remember thinking, oh, that'd be really cool. And I'm just sitting there, and she's cleaning, and she shoots up. She goes, "Would you say it'd be cool?" And I was like, I didn't say, I didn't say anything.
Wow.
Yeah, so that actually kind of reminds me, of that, what is it? Who knows? I mean, is it just knowing somebody so well? Is it, being open to something more as far as like energy and, who knows? I was definitely like, I'm convinced that my mind was read that day.
Yeah, I mean, I've had instances of that too, like with my wife or whatever, where I'm about to say something, and then she'll be like, "What?" I'm like, "I didn't say anything, but I was about to ask you X, Y, or Z." Like, it's just weird that like people who are together that closely for that long can start reading each other, or and again, maybe it's just subtle body language clues that this person's going to say something. Like, who knows? That's one of the fun mysteries. Like, where did we get this stuff? Why does it happen? And no one will ever really know.
Yeah.
So, anything else that you guys wanted to talk about the house, or did you kind of cover everything?
Mm.
No, but
Hmm.
I don't know if you want to cut this out. It's kind of funny. Um, Rachel and I were in our basement. I forget why. I think we were like getting like ice cream from the freezer or something, and the light was on, and like we're kind of our the basement's not comfortable. It's unfinished. It's dark. It's really cluttered. Cinder block walls and concrete slab and just a bunch of crap that my dad refuses to throw out. And we're on our way back up the steps, and there's no railing on the side. Uh, and my dad turns the light off, and we're convinced it's like a ghost. We start screaming, and Rachel pushes me over
I did
off
not
the
push
steps.
you off.
You did. You pushed me off the steps, and I landed on that really old TV that like I don't even know why we had, and I think a fan. And, and my dad is like, "Why? What did he say? Why do you fall or something? Like I had no control. Like you pushed me to like get out of the way."
We're hearing the crash from upstairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Is the TV okay?" And I'm like bleeding.
Is the TV okay?
Yeah. Is the
That's such
TV
a dad
okay?
thing. Save the television.
I think that's it.
No, the only other thing I actually remember from the house, which is the only like outside story I have, and I feel like it's like a outlier from the others. So I don't even know how often, like, if we really talked about it, like as a group. Olivia, you were there, but we were all hanging out like in like either we had like a trampoline out back, and sometime we'd hang out on there, or we'd go into the barn with the horses and hang out like late at night and just chit chat and stuff. Um, Teenager shit. um, so I remember one time we're walking back in, and we had, the whole expanse of the backyard, which I mean, the like fenced in area of the backyard, it had to have been close to like an acre. So it was like a decent amount of a walk that we had. And we're all just chit-chatting as we're walking back. And then something spooked one of us, and then we all got spooked. But then I distinctly remember as we're all kind of running inside, I looked to my side and I saw like a figure just kind of almost like wishy-washy, like moving kind of almost the same speed we were, but it wasn't like one of us. It wasn't like a dark person. It was almost just like a halfway there kind of thing. It was yeah, and it was definitely, it gave me like male, very young male kind of vibes. So it didn't really fit like what I felt like in the house. But that definitely, that was like the only time outside the house that I ever experienced anything that was really you know.
I remember making our walk back from the barn, and we all just started. Yeah, we were just casually talking, and all of a sudden, an uneasy feeling came over.
We all at the same time, nothing, there was no sound, there was nobody said anything that upset anybody. It was just like all at once, the whole group just got freaked out and started running without ever saying anything to each other.
And I remember.
One of our friends.
Bernadette. It was Bernadette, I think. One of our friends. Pile of sticks. And
she ran into it and face planted into the pile of yard
running. We left her. Yeah.
More like a question.
Sure.
This didn't involve me, but involved Olivia. I think it was in high school, and our high school, also in the Pine Barrens, it was newly built within like the last 5 years.
Is it the picture?
The picture, yeah. Do you want to tell it? Like,
I still talk about this picture to this day.
I was recently trying to find this picture.
I've tried to find it I can't find it anywhere.
So my friend and I were in the bathroom, and like stupid teens, we were taking selfies in the picture, and we were the only two.
Camera, right?
What, Pa?
It was a digital camera, right?
Yeah, on a cell phone.
Oh, it was a cell phone? I thought it was a digital. Okay.
No, it was on the cell phone, and we were taking pictures, and we were the only two people in there. And I know this because, we were in there doing makeup and washing our hands, and, we were just in there hanging out, not like actually going to the bathroom, We were in there for quite some time, and we were taking pictures. And in one of the pictures is like a shadow figure of a girl in the back. There is absolutely no light illuminated at all. It's a black mass, a silhouette, and we could not figure this out. And we didn't notice it until after we were already out of the bathroom and everything. And I was trying to find this picture recently to like dissect it a little bit. And where this person would have been was, you can like kind of see the light from the the light cascading down from the ceiling. They would have been directly under light, and there was absolutely no depth or anything. It was just mass, but it was definitely
black.
Yeah. Apparently this bathroom had stories of a girl in there. I tend to remember that. Do you guys?
No. Vaguely, because I remember, I feel like there was another girl or something that did also have like a picture similar to that within like a year or so of yours. And I remember like after a while, we just, at least in our circle, we called it the ghost bathroom, but I don't know if everyone at school was aware of that or not.
Yeah, I remember spending quite a bit of time trying to like debunk the picture. I would change the saturation of it, the brightness of it, and like nothing would change with this figure. No characteristics. It was just an entity and completely black.
Yeah, really with hair. That's the only thing you could see was the hair, black.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, like, now that we know a lot about cameras and lighting and flashes and mirrors and ugly bathroom, like can you debunk it, Jason, without seeing the picture?
It's hard without seeing the photo, but I mean, we've taken a photo like that as well, and there's just down a hallway in my old apartment, and there's just this like kind of figure that just it's like a hump, you know, and it almost looks like a head, like somebody from behind, but it's just pure black. And like Olivia was saying, like we tried adjusting the contrast and the brightness, and it's just this black area. No matter how bright you make it, it's just pure black. It's almost like something was absorbing the light. And I don't know if it was just a defect in the digital camera. I think this was actually a film camera, though, because we have like an actual printed photo. But looking at the negatives and scanning them, and it's just pure black and nothing. You can't bring any detail out of it. And again, for that figure, we couldn't tell if it was male or female or whatever it was. It was just this weird figure in the hallway, and it was just black. And it just at the bottom of the photo, and it's just like someone was standing in front of us, and we were like, oh, maybe somebody had their thumb on the lens. But if you put your thumb on the lens, it's like this, you know, it's not
Right.
it's not going to be just be down here and just taking up a little bit of the photo. So, and you said it had hair. Is that because I was going to ask? That's how you felt it was female, but you
So
thought it
you
had like
could
long hair.
almost, yeah, you could almost sense like the movement. Like it was just solid black, but you could almost see like that.
Right.
Yeah. But still solid black. Like you couldn't tell like hair texture, but it was just like it looked like an outline of somebody almost like, yeah.
It was like a perfect silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you could find that photo, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be scouring my photo bucket after we hang up.
Yes, maybe it's on there. Ah, that's
No
fun.
photo bucket.
This was like
On
from
MySpace?
12 years ago.
MySpace?
Yeah, is that on
Even get
MySpace?
into MySpace to get to those pictures. I'm sure it probably is in there somewhere.
I don't know if anybody can access their MySpace anymore. That's
We gotta get the Tom.
yeah. So have any of you had any other weird experiences, like maybe outside the house, or that you want to talk about? Like Rachel, you were talking about that, which was on the property, though, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
But
I've definitely lived in other properties that I've had experiences in. I mean, I can certainly talk about it.
yeah, if you got more ghost stories, this is the Halloween special. So yeah, tell us
Halloween
any
special.
Halloween special. So tell any other stories you got. It doesn't have to be strictly in that house. It could be anything weird you've experienced.
Yeah. Geez, I feel like I've got a lot between me and like my family. But my first like experience in my life came when I was in like kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
We had moved into a house and I grew up in like historic Roebling. So all the houses there are row homes and they're pretty old. And my whole family, we probably lived in this house for like a year, maybe. And over the times, let me think. So my first experience, I think, was we had 5 kids, and I think it was like a 4 or 5 bedroom house. So one of us slept in the basement, like one of my older teenage siblings. Somehow I ended up sleeping down there one night with them. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night feeling just scared for whatever reason, couldn't explain it. And I look and I'm just kind of looking around. And the bedroom was like towards the front of the basement. And then we still had like a portion in the back that we had storage. And I remember looking back there and seeing like glowing red eyes staring back at me in the basement. I must have been like 5 or 6 at that time. Yeah, so somehow I ended up going back to sleep after that. Over the years, my siblings and I have talked about it, and we all have, more stories. I know my sibling who was sleeping down there had mentioned that they had multiple times felt the sensation of something crawling into bed with them while they were sleeping down there.
Wow.
They compared it to like, as if like a dog came in to sleep with you, but we didn't have pets. So that happened a few times down there. And then I remember one time my mom was working late and my siblings made dinner for all of us, and we're just sitting down at the table. and a radio starts blasting upstairs. Nobody's up there. So all my siblings look around and we're like, what the fuck? So they all grab like big butcher knives and stuff and they're going up there. And sure enough, just a radio playing in the room all by itself. And things like that. Like they had light bulbs turn on and off, or like a hair blow dryer turn on by itself, stuff like that. And then I remember actually years and years later, we finally were talking to our mom and we're like, we had some fucked up experiences in that house. Like, and she's like, oh yeah, just super casual about it, which like, if you knew my mom, like classic Kathy, but she's just like, oh yeah, the landlord had said something about it, like probably being haunted when I moved in. Like, I didn't think anything of it. And we're all just like, Mom, like we're like traumatized from this house.
That's
but
crazy.
We only lived there for like a year and I was pretty young. So my memories are a little bit more limited. But yeah, within the course of the year, a lot of just like that kind of, mostly like the electrical stuff with like the appliances or, radios, things like that. That was the main thing that we experienced there. But I think one of my siblings actually said that they also saw the eyes in the basement, if I'm not mistaken. Double check on that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what the story is. I've never gotten the story as far as like, why people thought it was haunted or, anything like that, or what had happened with previous tenants that the landlord was just like really, casual about mentioning that to my mom. I would love to actually get that story. I'm gonna have to ask her.
Yeah, and sometimes there is no story. Sometimes you just hear of places that like we don't know why, but this location has activity and you might hear things. And then other places just there's no stories. And you move there and you live there and nothing ever happens. And a common misconception is people think like, oh, a place is haunted. There had to have been some sort of traumatic event here, or it has to be, an old cemetery that the house was built on, or an Indian burial ground, or someone committed suicide here. And more often than not, it's hard to find any sort of history that would explain the haunting. So yeah, that would be interesting if you could dig something up, but
yeah. Yeah, actually my current property that I'm in, my sister actually owns this house. It's a triplex and they bought it like 4 years ago. And we started up on the very top floor renovating. I'm on the second floor and my sister and her family live downstairs. And I remember while we were renovating that unit, we started just kind of joking about this ghost that we would call baby hands, because we'd be renovating and like random projects would get messed up by these little handprints.
Wow.
And we're like, what the heck is going on here? And we would just dismiss it. Like my niece was, maybe 9 at the time. We're like, maybe she just got in here and we didn't notice, whatever it is. But there were so many times where she was nowhere, not in the property those days. Or, I remember there was one time I was sanding something in a closed room. And so the whole bedroom, it's like a 15 by 20 foot bedroom. So it's huge. The whole floor is covered in dust. I leave the room, I come back in, and I shit you not, in the middle of the room, just a clear handprint in the dust.
Wow.
So that was kind of the turning point where we were like, okay, maybe there's some truth to this baby hands thing. But it's pretty mellow. I mean, we do see, not see, but we do like hear little things or, to this day. But honestly, I don't know, maybe there's truth to it, maybe not, who knows. But we, till this day, we're just like, oh yeah, it's baby hands. That's just baby hands.
I mean, that's interesting because a lot of people talk about like home renovations will kick up activity. Like they'll be living in a home for 5 years and never experience anything. And then they're like, oh, well, let's gut the attic and rebuild the attic. And then all of a sudden things start happening. Tools go missing, footsteps, voices. And they're like, we've lived in this house for years and never heard anything. But as soon as we started renovating, that for whatever reason creates or prompts activity. So it's interesting that you
Yeah.
mentioned that. And the hand, I was going to ask about the handprints because it's like sometimes like animals can get in the house and raccoons kind of have little hands that, look like human hands sometimes. But if there's something just in the middle of the room and nowhere else, that's freaky
Yeah.
because like, did the raccoon just jump and put its handprint
Right.
there and then jump back and it didn't leave any other footprints or disturbances in the dust. So that's weird.
Yeah, that was the kicker for us because before that it was all things that like, like I remember we had painted the cabinets in the kitchen. We came back the next day and it looked almost like somebody had been like hiding in the cabinet and like put their hand like this
Oh
on the
God.
thing. And we were like, well, that's a little weird. And that's initially what started the little kid thing because we're like, oh, it's a little kid hiding, whatever. And then once we saw that handprint where it was like, there's nothing around it, nobody could have stepped here, like, unless somebody's hanging from the ceiling, like, that was the most compelling one. But yeah, the renovation thing, honestly, I didn't even think about that because that unit is the only one that needed to get gutted. All the other units have just, got paint on them or whatever. But up there, it was like the guy had been there for like 35 years and was like a hoarder and stuff. So it got a complete gut. So yeah, I never actually thought about that. That's mainly where we've all experienced things is up there. Being
Yeah,
down in the other two units, it's easier to just be like, maybe, just it was nothing.
right, right. Interesting. That's really cool.
Baby hands.
Baby hands, baby hands. All right. Paula, Olivia, you guys got any other stories that any Jersey Devil stories? You're living in the Pine Barrens, anything like that, or
Not Jersey Devil. My boyfriend and I lived in a rental from I want to say the early 1800s in Medford, New Jersey. Um, and Paula and Barry were visiting us. And so there's this narrow staircase that we were all going down, and I was the last one coming down the steps. And I felt like a tap tap on my shoulder, enough to warrant me to turn around to see, like, what was that? Um, no one was there. I mean, I didn't get a creeped out vibe or anything, but that makes me think of other times in that house. I'd be in the kitchen, I would be cleaning dishes and everything, and I'd feel like something was kind of staring at me. Sometimes I'd feel it, sometimes I wouldn't. And then to have that experience was a little bit of the kicker, as Rachel says. But that was the only experience there. And just trying to think of anything else. Do you have anything, Paula?
From your house?
Anywhere.
or just anywhere.
I mean, just goofy things with dad. Like he loves pens, and he just carelessly leave them out, and then depending on what Discovery TV show he'd be watching, he'd be like, oh no, like I can't find it, and he was convinced it like fell into like a different dimension or like a wormhole or something. Meanwhile, like my brother's friends probably just like stole it or something, or probably in like the junk drawer. But like I don't know if he ever found those pens. I don't know. Just like goofy stuff like that. I think my brother and his friends and his now wife have had issues, not issues, experiences where
Yeah.
I think this is when mom and dad were ripping up the floors to put in the new floors, I think, right? And Daniel and Alina were still living there. And didn't she hear a music box go off that she had bought from an antique store?
Um, that was her mom's. So her mom had passed away from cancer several years prior, and she had one of her old wind up, music boxes, jewelry boxes in the closet or something like that. And just out of nowhere, it starts, she claims and she swears to this day that she heard it cranking in the closet, the little wind up. She heard it cranking, and then it started coming off with the music and everything. And this was also in line with so as a backdrop, my brother and his wife, but mostly my brother, they're antique dealers, and at this time they were interested in collecting post-mortem objects. So my brother, I remember he came home, he had it was either a book or a frame of a girl and her lock of hair, or like several locks of hair from various people, and this event tied into them owning that. And I remember they were thinking there was some kind of connection to it or something. But yeah, they swear to that to this day. And his wife is kind of a skeptic. She doesn't really easily believe in paranormal occurrences, but this one had them tripped up because they heard the cranking. It's one thing to occasionally hear something, going off, could be humidity or moisture, whatever, but to hear it cranking in a closed off, closet, that's pretty freaky.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you hear people who are kind of skeptical
Mm.
and they're not really prone. Like I said, I know people who just everything they see that it's a ghost, and for me, I don't really believe those stories as much. I'm more into people who are very sort of pragmatic and just not prone to flights of fancy like that, who will just never have a story, but then one night after a couple drinks, they'll like, let me tell you something. I had this one weird experience and I don't know what it was, but let me tell you, those stories always fascinate me. So the skeptics, you guys are gonna laugh at her camera again because she's zoomed out. Is that like an auto track camera, Rachel? Like
I have no idea. I don't have any control over what's happening.
Baby hands.
It's baby hands.
Baby hands.
But it's funny because like if you move, the camera kind of tracks you. But then every now and then it just does like this.
Yeah.
It'll zoom out and then it zooms back in. But usually it just tracks your face. It's like if you move, it slowly tracks you.
It's just my iPad. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That's like those filters where they, identify a face. People will like take pictures and then empty space behind them will have a filter applied to it.
I will say though, like growing up, like our house was very like traditional. It wasn't tall ceilings. It wasn't like that observation room where you feel like someone's looking down at you. But we all felt like someone was there. Even going up the steps, you feel like there's someone standing there watching you as you like come up closer to them. Um, yeah, but I was gonna say something else. I don't remember.
No, that's okay. And again, that's interesting to me because is it instinct? Is it like what are you feeling when you like you guys have all said like you didn't necessarily see things, but you're feeling something in the room with you. You're feeling something kind of standing over you, and that when you do feel those things, it can be just so guttural and instinctual, and yeah, you're afraid to open your eyes because it's almost better just not to see it, But
Right.
what causes that? Like, why would you, feel something like that if there's nothing really there? And again, is it a ghost? Is it paranormal, or is it just some other weird thing in our brain that's firing? We just don't know. But really interesting stories, guys. So thank you. Anything else you guys want to throw out there before we start wrapping up?
Well, just on that note, having Rachel and Bernadette sleep over and everything and tell me about their accounts of that like paralyzing fear. And, when I shared my bedroom with Paula, I'd never really expressed that because I always thought maybe it's just in my head. But to have, outsiders kind of share in that was like it checked out a little bit. I think it's weird that Paula didn't experience anything. Maybe she was manifesting it.
Yeah, also growing up, we slept with like 6 night lights too. Like that room was very well lit. I remember going to bed and we would always keep the door open so that the hallway light could be like we were very much afraid of the dark. We were afraid of silence.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm just like a heavier sleeper. I mean I clearly like I don't even know if I would classify my parents' house as haunted. It's just they're like experiences that I can't explain. I'm sure someone else can. I'm sure they're like high EMF readings too. Like my dad has everything plugged in into every socket.
Eh,
Um,
yeah, I mean those things are possible.
mhm.
Without like really investigating it, you'll never know.
Mm.
But it's interesting that it was kind of localized to certain areas. Like you're saying, like this one bedroom was like the ghost room, and you guys put poor Rachel in there or whatever. But um, I hear that a lot, from people who talk about their houses that are haunted or apartments or whatever it is. It seems to be localized. It's not something that's like, oh, no matter where you are in the house, you'll experience something. It's always, oh, it's in this bedroom or it's down in the basement or it's up in the attic. It always seems sort of localized. So that to me says, there's something to it, maybe
Mm.
more than just high EMFs or hallucinations or just power of suggestion. A lot of people will say that, like, you're telling a friend about a ghost story and then they come over and they see a ghost. Well, they're expecting it because you've told them. So it's always more interesting for me when people who don't know the ghost stories sort of come over and see somebody walk into the kitchen and they're like, hey, somebody just walked by and they have no idea that your house is haunted and they're seeing stuff or they're experiencing the same sort of thing. So that's always interesting as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like the stories from the previous owners sort of correlate with what you guys experience as far as the voices and interesting stuff. And again, some of it may just be sleep. I tend to anything I experience when I'm like waking up in the middle of the night, I kind of throw it out because I'm like, I could have been dreaming. Like I could swear something happened. But if I'm like woken up by it, I always say it was a dream. And maybe it wasn't, but I have to just assume it was. But there's plenty of stuff that happened to you guys while you're wide awake. So yeah, but if you guys can find that photo on, Tumblr or MySpace or, GeoCities, wherever you posted it way back in the day, I'd love to see that photo of that girl in the bathroom. That sounds really fascinating. Um, Anything else, guys? No?
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. This was awesome and a really good episode. And like I said, we're going to end with Olivia's song again. And I have to tell you, like that song just really impacted me.
Yeah.
And I don't like new music. I mean, most stuff I listen to was like released. I mean, the latest sort of thing is like 1991, 1992. I don't listen to new music. I don't like modern music usually. Um, but your vocals on that are incredible. I'm a musician, so I play guitar, I play bass, I
Nice.
play a little piano. I've written songs, not nearly as good as this one. um, but the harmonies are great. The guitar is great. The tone on
Thank
the
you.
guitar, the mix is great. Um, it's just a fantastic. I mean, like I said, it's been stuck in my head all day, mainly because I was editing and listening to it over and over again and trying to find really good parts. And um, but it's just a fantastic song. So we're gonna end on that.
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate it.
and yeah, no problem. And I'll put links in the description below so everybody can find you guys on Spotify and on Facebook and give the song a listen. And it comes out today because today is Halloween when everyone's listening to this. We're recording it on the 30th, but when everyone's listening to this show, it's going to be on Halloween. So it comes out today, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And do you want to give your boyfriend slash partner a shout out as well?
Yeah, Zach Maranowick. He also has his own self-named music project, which is more metal. He's in two other hard rock bands. One of them is with Corey Glover from Living Color.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a really amazing guitarist and singer. But our project is called Riversend, and we're very new. We only have two songs out as of today. So, stay tuned.
And both are very good because I'd heard the first one. I'm sorry, the name of the first one again was
Dreaming.
Dreaming.
Mhm.
And Paula had posted that to her Facebook when it first came out. And I remember listening to it and being like, holy crap, this is good.
Thanks.
And you just have like an amazing voice. And it's just haunting and ethereal. And like
Yeah.
you said, just these sort of themes of uh, the afterlife or the other side or whatever. And it's great. So I think my audience will really dig it.
Great.
But yeah, I mean this new one was. I mean, the first one was Dreaming was great, but this one is even better. I really dug this song. So
Great. That's
thank
awesome.
you. And yeah, so I'm gonna play it right after this so everybody can listen to the song in its entirety. And but thank you guys again for coming on.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jason.
for having us.
And I'll talk to you guys soon. Paula, I'll see you soon, maybe.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Bye. Happy
Happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
All right. All right, everybody. So I want to thank Paula, Rachel, and Olivia for coming on tonight. They had some really cool ghost stories. We had a lot of fun, a lot of silliness, but that's what you get with Paula and her sisters. I've known Paula for a long time. We've had a lot of fun together over the years, worked together. We've had lunch together. We've talked many things together, including the paranormal. So this was great. Just hope everybody has a great Halloween. I'm going to play the new song from Olivia. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm not even just saying this. I really dig this song. So enjoy it, guys. I'm going to put a link to her Spotify in the description below, but give the song a listen. Go find her on Spotify, like their band, because they are really awesome. Very ethereal, and her vocals are just amazing. And the instrumentation is just really good too. As a musician, I really appreciate the playing of the instruments, but her voice is just phenomenal. The melodies and the harmonies is just great. So give it a listen. Happy Halloween, everybody. This is an early episode. You're getting this on a Monday instead of a Tuesday because it's Halloween. But we will see you next week on Tuesday for our regularly scheduled podcast. Rock and roll. Listen to the song. Thanks, everybody.